I'm an optometrist originally, so I got into the field of optometry because I had two brothers with vision problems, one of who had a traumatic brain injury at birth and was completely blind, and my other brother had amblyopia. And so growing up, I was really aware of how unfair it was that some vision problems could be fixed and others couldn't. And that sort of led me down the clinical path to become an optometrist, but very quickly realised that I was way too curious to do that all the time. And so I decided to do a PhD as well. So I did a PhD in paediatrics, then worked in traumatic brain injury for some time, and then into that low vision and vision restoration space. I'm now a professor of optometry and ophthalmology at the University of Melbourne and the Deputy Director for the Centre for Eye Research Australia. Our research team are focused on inherited retinal diseases, and so most of the listeners will be aware that they're the most common cause of vision loss and blindness in working age people. And so we're very interested in learning more about inherited retinal diseases as a whole. So we have a patient registry, which has now got almost 700 people on the registry, and we do clinical phenotyping and genotyping as well. And we also do a lot of research into quality of life and how we can improve things like levels of depression and anxiety and workforce participation and those things as well. The other hat is very much in the interventional space. So I'm an investigator on a number of industry-sponsored clinical trials for patients with inherited retinal diseases. And I do that in close collaboration with my research co-lead, Dr. Tom Edwards, who's a vitreoretinal surgeon. And so he obviously does the interventional part of the treatments, and then I run a lot of the trial aspects. So I'm very passionate about outcome measures and how we show that these interventions can help things for patients. We have quite a large research team now, and people are sort of sub-specialising. So we have a very emerging space in genomic. We're very interested in female carriers of X-linked IRDs. Many of the X-linked inherited retinal disease trials at the moment only include males. Females were told, that they'd be okay. They only had one copy of the mutated gene. The other copy was a healthy wild-type variant. And so a lot of women almost in a way were perhaps given the wrong information, and when they did start to lose their vision were a little bit lost. I work with a very brilliant postdoc fellow in my team who did her PhD with us as well, Dr. Senna Gojic, and Senna is heading this research program around female carriers. So we're bringing people in, we're doing clinical testing and watching them over time to see whether or not they do progress to vision loss, and we're really interested in developing tests to predict which women will go ahead to lose vision, because then we can identify those women at high risk and put them into clinical trials that are coming up as well. I have some amazing female mentors. I can do a particular shout out to Professor Robin Geimer, who was one of my first bosses, and she's an absolute guru in our field. Most people will know her work in macular degeneration. But Robin was amazing because Robin always sort of said to me that obviously the science is very important, but your life is very important too. So it is important to make sure that you have that balance. And so she was always fantastic at helping me think about how I, work on my career and what things I wanted to achieve there, but also making sure that other things I wanted to achieve in my life didn't get left behind, particularly when you're in your early stages of your career, whether that be clinical or research based. We definitely have to do long hours and we have to work hard, and all of these things are just part of the career path that we choose. And I think it's always that being aware of that there will be some stressful times, but your entire career shouldn't be stressful and high guilt levels if you do anything else and all of those sorts of things. And so sometimes it's thinking about your workplace and what sort of environment you're in. And sometimes it can be even if, maybe you're in a really high stress work environment, but can you find an external mentor that can be someone that you can talk to about strategies and things to cope with. I had a really interesting conversation with another amazing female mentor of mine. Her name's Professor Anna Ryan at Melbourne University. And she was saying the other day that it's a fine line sometimes between being open about these things and being seen as maybe being a little bit weaker or softer if you kind of talk about these things. But I've been incredibly lucky to always be surrounded by people that really do value this. When we're doing research, we get into such a, fine space and you do often get kind of locked in your lab and you forget that there are other people out there that will be really happy to help and support as well. And I think that's why, initiatives like Weaver are so fantastic. Having an organization which is there to support people and say, let us help you network, meet other people, that's really, really important, because if you put every single piece of yourself into your work and don't look after yourself as a person, you're going to burn out. And I think that's the take-home message for everyone, is making sure that you look after yourself, your family, your friends, as well as your work. Quite often when I do talks, I have like one slide about this is my career path, and it looks so clear cut, but there were so many fork in the road moments where I wasn't sure if I'd made the right decision. And I think you just have to kind of accept that's part of life. I think I actually tend to freak my PhD students out a little bit. When they say, I'd like to do a PhD with you, I'm like, great, what do you want to do after your PhD? What do you want to be doing 15 years after your PhD? And these poor students are like, I've just decided I want to do a PhD, isn't that enough? So the reason I asked that is because my career has done really weird, twisty things. So yeah, started off as an optometrist, then worked in research. I then worked in a startup company in the US for a few years that spun out from Harvard and Cornell. And so that really has given me a passion for startup companies and the work that industry is doing to progress our field as well. So I always follow up that question with, it's okay, I had no idea. I went into a PhD because every single time I saw a patient in clinic, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then I would spend the evening, getting onto PubMed and researching what I'd just seen. And so I think for me, I was like, I've got scientific curiosity. That was the only reason I went into a PhD. And I never really thought about the pathway afterwards. And so I always kind of, after I scare the student by asking them what they want to do in 15 years, I then follow up with, I had no idea, but, I think we can prepare you a little bit better. And so I really like to sit down with people really early in their career and say, there are so many different pathways. I also try and encourage people to think, maybe there's 2 or 3 of these pathways that you're passionate about. And so maybe there's opportunities to blend them in your career as well. I think, definitely for everyone who's thinking about this path, my biggest recommendation would be reach out to people who inspire you, or who you're interested in their pathway, what they've done. Most people are actually very, very happy to have a coffee or do a Zoom chat or whatever it might be, just to sort of share some of these learnings, because I think a lot of the learnings that we have over our career are quite hard won. They often come with bruises and knocks and things that we've experienced in the past that we don't want others to experience. I have a hat as the Associate Dean of Innovation and Enterprise for our university. And so I work a lot with startup companies and people that are trying to push their ideas out to the community. And probably there I find so much inspiration, because these are people that are really working so hard and taking, big personal sacrifices sometimes to sort of really try and translate the research that's happening in their labs through to communities. And so for me, that's such an empowering and energizing role, that I actually get to meet with these people, hear about what they're doing, but watching the energy that they have and the drive that they have, you always wind it all back, and it's about, I want to help patients and I want to make the community a better place. And that for me is so inspiring. So usually you'll find that everyone's very, very happy to share. So reach out to the community, particularly, Weaver and Arvo. I think we've got an amazing support group here for women in ophthalmology.